Now, please welcome to the podium. I said today it's a special day. And I would say every day at Rotary is a special day. And today is an even more special day because we have a Rotary Person of the Year award. So with that, I want to welcome Jeff Fleming, who's Director of Communications for the Office of the Mayor, as well as Chair of our Rotary Person of the Year Committee, to the stage. Jeff?
Thank you, President Karen. I want to start today's program by framing this award that we give each year. The Rotary Person of the Year Award recognizes individuals who, through their profession, are making the Milwaukee community a better place to live and work. It's an unusual award. I don't know of any others that like it that celebrate the work, not the philanthropy or the heroics, but the work of an individual. I'm grateful to my fellow committee members who put the effort in to vet the nominations, and I'm grateful to those who have made nominations. It's always a difficult choice because there are so many talented people that we could present this award to. We take particular joy in presenting this award to people whose story may not be widely known. And today, I am very pleased that we are introducing you all to Daniel Goldin. And with that, I will invite Joan Johnson, the Director of the Milwaukee Public Library, to make the formal introduction.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you again. Excuse me. So I am very honored to have been asked to do this part of today's celebration. Daniel Goldin is definitely making Milwaukee a better place to live and work. His brilliant entrepreneurship combined with his passion for creating and building community has positive economic and social impact on the city as a whole. As was stated in the nomination letter that the nominating committee received, Daniel can be credited with saving the independent bookstore experience for Milwaukee. In creating Boswell Book Company, he has persevered against low margins, the dominance of online booksellers, and the COVID shutdowns. Through persistence, business savvy, and incredible hard work, he continues to deliver soundly on his mission to connect books to Milwaukeeans. Daniel is a graduate of Dartmouth with a degree in mathematics. He has been bookselling for 34 years. In his role as a book buyer for the former Schwartz bookshops, Daniel cultivated many relationships and connections with New York publishers. He has used these relationships to bring a steady stream of authors to Milwaukee to talk about their books while bringing national recognition to our city. As a native Long Islander, I'm sure it helps that he speaks their language without the Midwestern accent as he woos the East Coast publishers into sending their best and brightest to Boswell Books. Not 3 weeks ago, literally hundreds of people waited in line stretching for several blocks around the Oriental Theater to hear WTMJ's Shannon Sims interview author Stacey Abrams. It was a truly remarkable evening thanks to Daniel and his partnership with MKE Film. As a nationally known bookseller, Daniel was selected in 2016 as one of 3 judges for the Story Prize, awarded to the best short story collection in English. Daniel also is a supporter of local writers. And in 2015, he received the Christopher Latham Scholes Award from the Council for Wisconsin Writers for outstanding encouragement of Wisconsin writers. He's even supported one of the library's own staff members, who's also an author. He was also gracious enough to serve as a panelist for Milwaukee Public Library's Wisconsin Writers Wall of Fame selection process. Boswell's evening author events, which usually there are 3 to 4 of them scheduled every week, are an important part of Milwaukee's social life and a key gathering place for building community. Daniel himself is the rare intellectual who is also an extrovert, sharing his passion for local authors, urbanism, department stores, and Band-Aids with anyone who walks into his store. He has devised a business model that builds relationships with personal service, intimate author events, and a carefully chosen rotation of books. Daniel is a strong supporter of local libraries and public radio. His long-lived partnership with the Milwaukee Public Library has enabled us to develop and grow a strong fan base for literary programming by delivering quality author events to diverse communities across the city. The library's budget is modest, and with Daniel's support and enthusiasm for serving the community, the library, has been able to host many acclaimed authors to curious and adoring audiences for free. Over the last 14 years, Daniel has partnered with school districts as well. He brings new and best-selling authors alike to in-person author events. Boswell's school outreach coordinator sets up over 40 author visits to schools in Milwaukee and the surrounding suburbs each semester. Authors give a 45-minute presentation on the craft of writing and also talk about their particular topic. Kids have a chance to ask questions as well. Many of these authors typically charge large honorariums and would otherwise be unaffordable to districts who are also on tight budgets, just as the library is. Boswell, in turn, is expected to promote and sell the author's books to the schools for the families. These school events serve to inspire and excite the minds of young students and help bring along a new generation of readers who are passionate about learning and reading. And that's an outcome that aligns perfectly with the goals of Milwaukee Public Library. For all of these reasons and more, it is with great satisfaction that I and my co-nominators, Alex Chu and Pat Algiers, who are here today, and we express our appreciation to the Rotary Club of Milwaukee, the selection committee, nominating committee of Daniel Goldin for this well-deserved recognition. We appreciate that our nomination was selected. So now let's learn a bit more about Daniel Goldin in this video profile.
It's funny because I think of him as a sort of force of nature.
Definitely humble, modest. He's in the background.
He just puts you at ease immediately.
I'm amazed that you found him to give him this award because he's the last person to take credit for anything.
That quirkiness is balanced with just brilliance.
I just find him fairly astonishing.
Daniel is a creative whirlwind, and I think one of the most amazing things one of the things that made me really want to move to the city was when I walked around the neighborhood and I saw that it was alive in many respects, all those businesses on Downer Avenue, but one of them was an independent bookstore, which are kind of rare around town these days. And the fact that Milwaukee not only had an independent bookstore, but had such an amazing one and such a well-known one, that spoke to me, and I said, this is a place where I can find literary community.
I'm biased because we live in this community, and my wife and children and I come to this store all the time. So our kids are 8, 6, and 4, and they know the store like the back of their hands. They know exactly where the children's section is, and they really look forward to coming here and engaging with everything that Boswell has to offer.
I think we're all just kind of big nerds here, so we all love books, and why else would we work here? But he definitely makes it a very good environment to work, kind of just like a big family here.
Oh, he has a national reputation. People know about Boswell books in New York, in Los Angeles. People say, "Where's your home bookstore?" And Boswell is my home bookstore. And they say, "Oh, Daniel Goldin."
It's hard to think of bookstores that are at the level of Boswell, About one in every state, you get this really special independent bookstore that is more than just a delivery system for literature and culture and ideas, but it's also a community institution, something that brings us all together and really can foment and spark citywide conversations about important issues.
He has set up so many ties with so many different parts of the community. Every time we bring an author in, he thinks, who can I bring in? What organization is going to find this author have a very personal connection with? And things that I would say, hey, we should be charging for this because we have all this inherent knowledge. He's just like, no, we want to get the author out there. We want to get the ideas out there. We want to get, this connection and it'll be great and they'll love it and that'll be the important thing.
I mean, I love his personality because he's so, I just feel like he puts you at ease, and he's super interesting. I mean, he knows so many different people from all across the country, and he's just, he's so knowledgeable that, you can talk to him about anything. And so I just feel like, you can't really put him in a box.
I think one of the most exciting parts about touring Daniel's store anytime, but especially when I first moved here, was that wall when you go in right to the right and he's got all the posters up for coming events. I don't think people realize just how lucky Milwaukee is that authors really consider Milwaukee a place to come and stop in. Like really famous big names will come through town.
It's just invaluable, I think, to me, certainly, to have somebody like Daniel who is in my corner. And he's really, I think, that is how I would describe him the most, is that he is in the corner of every writer and every reader.
Very passionate. Once he sets his mind to something, he kind of goes all in. If he's walking by and he hears a customer that has a question at the front desk, even if he's doing something different, he immediately stops and he tries and sees if he can help and what he can do to make it right, and he doesn't leave until the customer's happy.
Daniel Goldin has been working with the library as a partner to help us deliver really amazing and excellent programming to people of all ages, but especially to adult readers. Without this partnership, the library would not be able to afford to bring in so many notable authors.
Daniel was there for me at the beginning. We launched Evicted here in Milwaukee at Boswell Books. Daniel was such a big supporter of that work, and I love his work there. I love Boswell, love the city, love Independent Bookstore.
We have a great kids event programming that we get into schools. We make sure that those kids go to all schools. It doesn't matter what where the school's located, whatever. We try to get it fairly equal out, and we try to make sure books are available to all the kids who can afford them, the kids who can't.
To be with Daniel is to sort of be in the presence of, it's not fair to say sort of an otherworldly being, but he is kind of not quite of this plane.
I think it's really nice that he has to go to this and that he has to see what the differences he's made.
I can't think of a better person to win this award because the Rotary motto is connecting. And part of the reason that Boswell Books and Daniel Goldin has been so successful is because of the connecting he's done in the community.
It doesn't surprise me at all that Daniel's getting an award like this. I think he should get all the awards that are available.
It's always a pleasure to work with Daniel. I think he's not only a super professional, but he's just low-key and laid back, and so the total package of what authors are looking for. So he makes our life really easy, and it's an honor to be here in Milwaukee working with him again, and I'm thrilled that the Rotary Club recognized Daniel this year.
Daniel Goldin is so deserving of this recognition, and I'm just so grateful to the Rotary that there are opportunities to select people from around the community that might not otherwise get such recognition.
Daniel, did you just love all those comments?
Oh, yeah,
I was particularly struck by Matt Haas's comment about connecting and how you do that. It was so obvious. And also Joan's comment around your adoring audiences. So we would like to add ourselves to your adoring audience space here. And on behalf of the Rotary Club of Milwaukee, Congratulations for being named the 68th Rotary Person of the Year.
No, don't clap, please. I have to, I'm a long talker, so I'm trying to do you all a favor and start a stopwatch. So, first of all, thank you very much for this honor. I'm going to say, as you're going to be shocked to hear, that I don't deserve it. I would have given it to Vincent Noth, but maybe next year. So, I am it's hard to say what exactly to say for something like this. Am I supposed to give you sort of how I got from there to here, or you can watch that online or something like that, or am I supposed to say the state of books, or why I guess this is probably the nicest honor that I could get in my life. Maybe I'll go with that. So I just want to say that when I say that, and I am really used to standing over there shilling books after the author event. So if you think if I might wind up going there and seeing, I haven't written anything, so the sales aren't gonna be very good. But I would like to say that how I got here is completely by accident and sort of random, but I guess that's where most people's trajectories are. I did not grow up in Milwaukee. I didn't even really know anybody in Milwaukee. Honestly, my connections to Wisconsin were that my freshman roommate was from Green Bay and had put W's next to everybody in the freshman book that was from Wisconsin. And I thought, oh, those people seem nice. So I also chased, my closest friend lived in Chicago, or one of my closest friends after college, and my sister lived in Indiana. She taught at Purdue, and I thought, well, I can see her more. They were both, I moved here, and they were both gone within a year. So that didn't work out that well. I am actually in book selling and publishing. You know, my book world is completely by mistake as well. I was, as you heard, a math major. That was also completely by mistake. I was actually a Russian major, and it was, I was supposed to do foreign study the year that the United States boycotted the Olympics. And I thought, oh, I probably shouldn't go to Russia this summer. I will probably get kicked out. And everyone laughed at me and said, nobody's gotten kicked out of this program ever. 2 people got kicked out. So just saying. So I had to change my major. And I thought, well, math is a really good major because I don't know what to do with it. And I get lost in every class. But I will tell people that I'm a math major, and they'll say, "Oh, you're very smart, obviously, because math is hard." So I was looking for a job after college in advertising or publicity, market research. That seemed kind of mathy. Got through a few interviews, got nothing. And a friend of mine that I had met during my college years worked at Publishers Weekly, and he said, "You should go for this job in at this publishing house because." They are structured as an in-house ad agency, so you can go there, and after a year, you can get the job you want, and they'll see that on your resume, and they'll say, "Oh, advertising." So I wound up doing that. It turned out that I liked the book part more than the advertising part, and so I wound up doing that for 4 years until I would get all caught up in knots because it was so stressful in publicity and publishing at the time. We didn't really have cell phones. We didn't have anything. So the authors would just call me in the middle of the night on tour and say, "I can't get into my hotel. You were supposed to assign direct booking." And I'd say, "Could you use like your credit card?" And they'd say, "No, I don't have a credit card." So I'd have to negotiate with them at 2 a.m. or whenever they were there. And I thought, well, maybe I should do something else for a while. And I decided I was actually touring a book because I would do whatever the book was that I was doing publicity for, the crazy diet or I didn't take all the medication of one of my authors who had a life expectancy book, the business plans, and I had this book on touring. It was a ripoff. Do you remember Places Rated Almanac? So we did a lot of knockoff books. And this was a book called Finding Your Best Place in America, which it was all pre-computers, and you'd fill out a questionnaire. It would say, well, for you, you should live here. And while it didn't come up with anything definitive for me, I sort of got the idea that I was supposed to live in a smaller place in the Midwest, and nothing really quite worked. And I actually visited a few other cities, but I had no car, and so some cities were like hard to get around in. It turns out if you hug the lake in Milwaukee, you can get to a lot of stuff. And I didn't actually own a car till I was 50. And I went to the first books. There were 7 bookstores downtown, I think, including the secondhand and the chain stores and the independents. At the time, I thought, this is book paradise. So a little, there was also 2 Woolworths, which I was very excited by, and 2 department stores. And so I walked in the first store, and actually, it was like going into most bookstores. I bought a book, I checked out, I said, hi, trying to chat, and they're like, thank you for your purchase, goodbye. And then I turned out that I went to the other store, and the gentleman there was restocking Andrew Greeley. Do you remember Andrew Greeley? He was the Catholic priest who wrote the Pot Boilers, and he was very nice and always brought me raspberry frangos. Actually, he bought them for the women in the office, but only I ate them. And he was moving around the Andrew Greeley, and I said, oh, that's my author. And so that kicked up a conversation, and my friend John, who is still my friend today, said after we talked and I went to Heinemann's and all kinds of silly things, I said, I think I'm thinking I'm working in a bookstore for a year. Let me know if something comes up. And I wound up moving here to work as a frontline bookstore for a year, maybe 2, and then go back to publishing and use what I learned. I wound up not leaving, and I would have probably still been on the floor of a bookstore. Our owner, David, one of the 2 owners, David Schwarzenegger and Domnitz, and David was the buyer, and he was looking for an assistant. The assistant basically ran reports for him because we had computers, but they weren't very good computers, and he couldn't work on a computer. So you would just print out like 50, 100-page reports, and he would mark them up, and then you'd enter them for him. And I was such an honor to be chosen as assistant, only to find out like 5 other people had rejected him first. So what they didn't know is that he was going to teach me how to buy. And so that was a really great experience and perfect for, I know you heard this, an introvert like me. I do not like groups. I do not like public speaking. I don't like parties. I don't like any of those things. And so I literally, I worked above the fish store in Whitefish Bay, Sendix, and then we moved into offices down the block where I literally worked in a supply closet. There was no door, there was no window. It was very small, and it was perfect. And I thought, this is the greatest job I'll ever have in my life. I never want to do anything else. I'm never moving. Just let me sit there with catalogs and and see sales reps and spend 25 hours buying because nothing's computerized. And lo and behold, the world changes and you have to move along with it. And I changed places and changed responsibilities. And then eventually it came to the point where when I was working at Harry W. Schwartz, the stores had to close. They still exist. The company still exists at Porchlight. It's a wonderful company. We do events with them. Probably some of your companies work with them. But the retail wasn't working. And I had the opportunity to do an asset purchase of one of the stores. And I thought, I bought a store, another person bought a store, and she had a wonderful story. It was very true. She wanted to own a bookstore since she was a child. And I thought to myself, I never wanted to own a bookstore. I don't really know but I don't really know how to do anything else. And it's a good thing this is happening now because 5 years ago, I couldn't have done it. And so, we did open the store in 2009. We, through a sense of various things, had the opportunity to think. I had 23 years to think about how I wanted to run a bookstore, and so that gave me a rush of changes to the store, of intensifying programming, of working with schools. You mentioned the school visits, Joan, and I want to say one of the women came with me who worked at the Brookfield Harry W. Schwartz, and she said, I did that at Schwartz. I'll do that for you. And so we started building this school visit program. And she finally said to me, she said, or maybe it was Amy who said that to me, we do more events in like 2 weeks than we did in a year, like a whole semester at Schwartz. So needless to say, I burned out several people in that job. And I actually did it myself for a while. So because I really feel like it's important to know how to do everything that people are doing, though I'm still bad at bookkeeping. So anyway, I wouldn't be able to do this without the support of a really wonderful staff. I'm so glad that Jason and Jen, our two buyer managers, are here. Jason, you saw in the video. Jen wouldn't do the video, I'm sure. Jenny, our school outreach person who's going to these schools in like 7 counties, schools where we raise the money to buy the books for kids and find grants, schools where the kids buy the books. Rachel in our marketing department who does book clubs with us, and Amy who was our kids buyer and now is probably my rock because she is making sure our bills get paid and the people get paid as well. I could probably, like I said, I could talk about this for 7 hours. I have a lot of notes, but I realize now that I'm supposed to open for questions. And so that's what I'm doing. If necessary, I can repeat the question. I'm very loud, I've been told.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
So as an independent bookstore owner, are you getting offers all the time by bigger to take over, or it's not even?
Wait, say that again?
Is there anything else are you, with so much consolidation and everything else, and I know a lot of the stuff.
Oh, have I been ever had offered to buy? No, for a while, Borders bought some independents. It was a complete and total failure. They bought a wonderful store. They bought several stores, Odegaard's in Minneapolis, Library Limited in St. Louis, and both were colossal failures. I would think there was a store that had its own espresso book machine that was supposedly going to buy some bookstores. Each bookstore is so different. It was very much like when Schwartz ran stores. We had this idea, especially we were running these bargain stores called Dickens Discount Books, with unfortunately the apostrophe in the wrong place, but eventually we fixed that. I'm trying to get better about apostrophes in the wrong places. I just want everyone to know. But we had this idea that we were going to roll them out nationally. This was Avon Dunnitz, one of our former owners, who became the head of the American Booksellers Association. And the fact was we bought each store so individually that we couldn't get the economies of scale going. Because we had to, like when a bookseller would say to me, I really love so-and-so, and you're not buying that for me. And this was in the discount stores where we were supposed to kind of be hands-off. We just couldn't make it work. Every store had to be special. Every store had to have bookseller input. Each store, which we were always at Schwartz, like trying to match the community, like seeing what was selling and giving them more of it, hearing what people wanted. And so I just feel like if somebody bought us, what would they be buying? I could see more possibly somebody trying to roll. Oh God, people have bought independent bookstores and tried to kind of duplicate it. And some of my other friends have opened additional stores, and initially we got a lot of requests to open additional stores. I'm pretty adamant, and this is something I learned from Schwartz, that I wanted to always be one store only. A, because like I said, I'm not that good at a lot of the details of this. And B, I always feel like when you have multiple stores, they feel like at best a carbon copy, but at most, what I think it's more like if you're old enough to remember mimeograph machines and you like roll out the thing and it's like blue and smudgy. And that's sometimes what that second and third store looks like to me.
And again, congratulations.
Thank you, Alex.
So I get starstruck when I meet some authors that you bring. Do you get still starstruck, and do you have anybody like on your list? My goodness.
Well, that's funny. Yes. And mostly, and I'm still working on John Grisham for you. He did promise us in a virtual event, but nothing's come of it. I do, and mostly I've learned to get better though. I don't like panic. I mostly just kind of shut down and do my work. I was we did have this opportunity with Stacey Abrams a few weeks ago. One of the things we did was invite, there's really wonderful bookstores in Milwaukee and a lot of new stores like Lion's Tooth, Larevo, Rooted MKE, and then plus things like Books and Company, Little Red Book, and I'm just saying these other stores, so, and others. I've not mentioned everything outwards. I just want to say to support them as well. And but I brought a bunch of booksellers in to meet. Say there wasn't a public, but I said, hey, would Stacey Abrams be okay with booksellers meeting Stacey Abrams? And so they said they liked the idea. So we invited people in, and I saw what panic can be with a few of them, sort of not. And she's so at ease, and she was so nice. And I thought, because sometimes authors are a little, and especially when we do the ones like celebrities, like when we'll do something at the Pabst or something like that, and we have to kind of feed books to people. I am, but I don't shake. I just like, I'm doing my business. I'm like somebody serving someone at, a famous person at a restaurant. I just gotta get them their dish. So.
I join in the congratulations of your earning this award. My question is, in this digital age, what is the future of the paperback or paper-bound book?
That's an interesting question, because one of the things that I've been thinking about is when we opened in 2009, the pundits had said that bookstores would be gone, and actually the physical books would be gone by 2014. There's really a number of things that have kept books going, and they really kind of badly called it. Now, I will say nobody ever penalizes pundits. They just come up with a whole bunch of new prophecies. And now I was thinking about this with Jean Dixon. Remember the astrologer who I was like, what did Jean Dixon get wrong? And apparently a pope did not get assassinated, for example. And that's the way I sometimes feel about this. Like, I'm sure you feel this way about business, and the stock market is up, and here's 10 reasons why it's up, and the next day it's down, and there's 10 completely different reasons why it's down. It was just yesterday. But the point being, I think now, because booksellers are opening, there's a pretty good model in place. The ebook has stabilized. I read somewhere that it was the 5th best business to open in the last 5 years, and so people wind up always looking at the future to predict the past to predict the future. That's what I mean. And I actually think that, I'm sad to say, I feel like the pundits are a little over enthusiastic about the model, because it's really very precarious. It really, if something happens to paper prices, or environmental things change, or there's a new model that comes out, or, if virtual reality takes off, I laugh, but this is the thing. I laugh at a lot of things that actually happened. Anything could really change things. And I mean, I look at the model that Starbucks had for coffee. They're very popular still, but they're not the community model they were 10 years ago, because it turned out that everything's takeout. And that's partly because of COVID. We haven't brought our couches back yet but we certainly do enough other programming that brings people together. So I don't really know, and I'm not a pundit, and I just think, I have a model that I always say is we wouldn't have a bookstore without you. And what I mean by that, when I say that at the end of programming, what I mean is we'll be here as long as you want us. And we don't really know. We see a lot of young people in the store, but things can change. And so I don't have an answer. I'm like, we're here now. If you like bookstores, come visit us, or come visit, or go to whatever bookstore you like.
So I was going to ask you what made you decide you need a car at 50, and I'm kind of curious about your driving habits, but hugging Michigan and other things. But yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to interrupt and say, a friend of mine who I was driving around from Minneapolis said, "You're not as bad a driver as my friend I was with last week." So I'm not the worst.
But my business question is your relationship with the library. They give products away for free, or they give your product away for free. And it's interesting to see how the synergy works that way. And are other bookstores, doing the same thing, the national models and that neighborhood relationship?
I honestly don't think there's a bookstore that works with quite as many library systems as we do. I mean, we work a lot with Joan at the Milwaukee Public Library, but we have an event coming up at the Whitefish Bay Library, at the Elm Grove Library. We've worked with North Shore. We've worked with people with Elm Grove, Brookfield, Mequon, Cedarburg. Part of this is because there weren't other bookstores more local. Like when a bookstore comes into market, we do a lot of things at Greenfield. With Greendale last year, we had Wauwatosa coming up. So I think that was something that I specifically decided to do, to embrace libraries. I love libraries. It is counterintuitive, but it's sort of a corollary of, I had this kind of idea in my head of, which has worked for me in the past, or I've seen it work, is with throwing out a lot of love to people. And this is not to say that I can't do everything you ask me to, so to be clear, but I can figure out a lot of ways to engage lots of different groups and try to make it for their benefit. And that's what I kind of tried to do with libraries as well. In terms of my driving, I actually didn't get a car until I opened the store, but I did run the store without a car for a year and a half. And yes, I did an offsite on the bus. And yes, once I did an event in the 3rd Ward and took a cart full of books. I walked it back to the store, which is about 45 minutes to an hour. So after doing that a few times, I thought, I don't think there's a way I can get through this.
Congratulations, Daniel. I have actually not a question, but 2 short stories I want to just share. So not only does Boswell and Daniel reach out to libraries, but he, from the beginning, reaches out to community organizations when there's an author or a group, and he really makes an effort to bring in just a variety and diverse authors and books to appeal to everyone. And I remember the very first time when I was when my organization was invited to partner, and so I came and I wanted to meet this Daniel, and so they told me he's in back, and so there was someone cleaning up, and so I figured, okay, I want to ask the custodian if Daniel's around, and it was Daniel. But one of the things that I also want to mention, because this Rotary has helped raise some funds for the Afghan refugees that came in. And so one of the projects that we have and continue to work on is with the children. And so we had approached Daniel about getting books that are in English and Pashto and English and Dari to help the kids kind of learn English with storybooks and fables that they were familiar with. And so he not only put in the order, but then he said it's a donation from them. So I just wanted to share that. So thank you.
Thank you so much for Boswell Books. We love it so much. And just a little plug to everybody, when you're about to press an order on Amazon, that you just call Boswell and order that book, and it's there in 2 or 3 days. And secondly, I have a friend who just self-published a book, and I've often enjoyed the local authors area. Do you feature those who self-publish on that shelf?
We do. We haven't. That shelf is kind of a mess right now, so we're definitely working on it. Some stores charge for that. We don't want to charge, and so it becomes a little more difficult. My model has been to try to have one. We call it contract publishing. Anyone who pays anything, because it's a much more fluid thing. Like sometimes you pay a lot, sometimes you pay a little, and we try to have just about one contract publisher a month, published author a month, but we can't do them all because all of you have written books and we don't have enough time. But we do some, and I will tell you one funny story about that, which has to do with our lease. And the story is, so when we took over the lease from Schwartz, and the Lees, John Dan Lee were the landlords, and they were willing to negotiate with us. And Phyllis, our property manager, was just terrific and always was a wonderful support. But eventually the control of the property moved to a group of federation of banks that I never quite understood, and we had another property manager. And the one problem was I could get a lease, but it was always short term because they really wanted to redevelop the space. We're not really supposed to be in that space anymore, but we are, because when I renegotiated with the sales agent, he sat down, and it was a little different because they were sort of custodians, but he said to me, "Oh, by the way, my aunt had an event with you." And after that, and that was a contract published book, and after that it went very smoothly. So you you never really know, you think, but there's a nice result from that. So you can thank the aunt.
I have two quick questions. First of all, with a last name like Goldin, weren't you kind of destined to be in the book business?
Yeah, I think that comes from honestly, it's a Eastern European Jewish name. It was actually more like money lending and stuff. So, but because that's what all we were allowed to do. Because couldn't, that's the old religious story. In any case, maybe. So I didn't want to call it Goldin Books because there was already one in Racine.
Who knew? I knew David Schwartz very well, and he used to tell me that the big booksellers were selling books for less than he could buy them wholesale. How do you deal with that?
And that is actually true in terms of not necessarily Barnes & Noble, but Amazon does buy the books non-returnable in many cases. And I'm not going to really get into it here, but there are ways to funnel the books back so that they can return non-returnable books. Honestly, we're never going to match the price. And every so often we do, but for the most part, we have to go into it saying we are never going to match the prices. And you really just have to hope that there's something else in people's brains that makes them just make, and I've had a whole talk about this, like how to get people to make seemingly irrational decisions. And if you've read some of economic books, there's a different part of your brain that makes economic decisions and decisions about, say, donating money, which is very different. And not to say that I'm not doing a GoFundMe, never ask for any money, but the idea is to kind of turn off the price part of the brain and turn on the I love being here, this makes me happy, you helped me, I love this selection, I want this place to be here, this is my happy place part of the brain. And we don't need everybody to do that. We just need enough people to do that. So, hello, Elizabeth.
Hello, Daniel. Congratulations. This is so well deserved. I have always admired your energy and your optimism, and I'm curious what aspect of your work brings you the most joy.
That's an interesting thing. I mean, it's changed over time, but I really do actually love, I don't do it enough, but I try to do it as much as I can. I really do like interacting with customers. I really like talking about books, and I really like connecting with people over books. I mean, everything else is gravy, and I am very proud of our new category signs, which are 14 years in the making, which I think was in the video. But yeah, that's, I think, what I like the most.
Quick question. What book have you read that you're most excited about this year? And what book are you most excited that's coming? And again, I would also...
Oh, these are all new to you, probably, or at least to some of you. So here are some of my favorite books of the year so far. I've read a few books this fall. I can't say I'm not... I'll tell you about one that's I just read. So this is Goodnight, Irene by Luis Aparicio. He is a good friend of the story. He lives outside Chicago, and so he likes doing stuff. He actually was the Milwaukee Public Library featured speaker at the literary lunch for his last book, The House of Broken Angels. This is a very different book. He's mostly written about border crossings. He was actually a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize for his nonfiction. He's written magical realism. He's written like family novels, and this is very different. It's based on his mother's life. It is classic historical fiction about the donut dollies, the women who volunteered for the Red Cross and went into front lines to provide coffee and donuts for soldiers. At the center of this book is a beautiful friendship story, and it is much based on his mom's life. So this is, you asked, what can I say? This is my favorite nonfiction book this year so far, A Fever in the Heartland by Timothy Egan. If you like, I love narrative nonfiction. I love grabbing onto it, honestly, because it's pretty easy to sell. If you like Eric Larson and you can't wait for his new book this fall, which is supposedly happening, this is a book about the rise of the Ku Klux Klan, the second coming of the Ku Klux Klan, which was not in the South, it was in the Midwest and the West. And in particular, what happened in Indiana when basically the Klan, led by a very amoral kind of almost like mob leader, basically controlled the state of Indiana and this murder trial that brought him down. So great. So then this is my favorite mystery thriller right now, All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. This is his fourth novel, and it is most straight ahead. He's written like a caper novel. He's written a revenge novel, which is actually being made into something or other. This is like a straightforward, like detective serial killer novel. It's set in the rural South, and it is he is the first black sheriff in this county, and so Cosby is able to infuse sort of race issues into his story and his identity as a black man without being lectury, like just telling you more. So exciting. It's beautiful. He is such a lover of language. He has so many influences. It is beautifully written, but it never gets in the way of a very exciting story with, I will say, if you're queasy in the stomach, a lot of killing. So this is my next event, because I always have to say what's coming up. And since you asked, this is day 5,192 of us being in business. Oh, woo-hoo! This is a book called Paper Names by Susie Guo. It is about a Chinese immigrant family and an old moneyed American family whose lives collide in the lobby of an apartment building when the doorman, who is the Chinese American, sort of helps someone in the building. They wind up building a friendship. Needless to say, there's a lot of secrets involved. And it's a book about immigration. It's a book about money. And it's a book about connection. I read the book because J. Ryan Straddle had written Empathetic, Propulsive, and Timely, A Magnificent Debut. I love him. He's such a friend of authors. You saw us posing with Ryan Straddle. His book is called Saturday Night at Lakeside Supper Club. It is about it is set in supper clubs. It is set in Minnesota, but it is a Wisconsin-style supper club in Minnesota, to be clear, with brandy old fashions and a relish tray. Anyway, he loved this book, and so I thought, I'm going to read this book, and I loved it too. And my friend Lisa from Books and Company and I do a monthly conversation, mostly virtual. We've had a couple in person now, where we talk to authors. I have been told they're delightful. So it's tomorrow afternoon at 2, and we record them so you can watch it later. And then finally, this is another book that I really loved called Pieces of Blue. This was our last conversation. Holly Goldberg Sloan is mostly known for her kids' books, including Counting by Seven. She also wrote the screenplay for Angels in the Outfield, if you remember it. This is her first adult novel, and it reads like your favorite middle grade, and I don't mean fantasy, I don't mean Harry Potter, I mean like those classic kind of crossover books about families struggling with grief and making new friends and moving to new places. So it's, as we call it, Lazy Susan style, running through the different characters. The dad has died, the mom takes the insurance money and buys a falling down motel in Hawaii, but they have a lot of trouble fitting in. They're not native Hawaiians. And then somebody comes who is mourning his wife, and turns out he's a handy person and starts helping them fix it up. And needless to say, it's a beautiful book. It's very well written, but then there are some twists, some sort of like suspense twists that kind of make it more, I'm not talking like sex and drugs and stuff. I mean like just adult kind of themed twists that really take it to another level and make you think, well, I'm 40 or 50, but it's okay for me to read this book. So it was a New York Times beach read too. That's all. She asked.